Hi sewing friends, my name's Karina. Welcome to my channel Lifting Pins and Needles, where it's all about sewing. Now the project I want to show you today has been in the works for a long time, first in my head and then lots of steps to be able to achieve this, because there's actually no pattern available for what I wanted. So a long time ago I pinned a jacket I saw on Pinterest on my board, and then I just started getting really obsessed with it. I looked for patterns everywhere and I couldn't find any, so I decided that I was going to have to do something because I really wanted this, As I've told you before, when I get inspiration from Pinterest, it's usually about the style or some design lines, or maybe not all of them, but I don't want to replicate the exact same thing. I'm going to insert now 3 pictures, the ones that I pinned. You can see it's a denim jacket woven with raglan knit sleeves, and that looks really comfortable. It's sort of cropped and there are front and back yokes. I'm not interested in those, as well as the pockets on top of the bust, but I do want that woven knit sort of combination, and I could not find a fitted jacket that was raglan with knit sleeves. That just does not exist anyway. So I have piles and piles of Burda magazines and I use them for inspiration, and in this particular case I actually used it for a pattern that was there, but the pattern was not for a jacket, it was for a dress. So I will insert a picture here. This one is in the August magazine of 2014 and it's 141. It's a mermaid dress, like they call it. It's a fitted dress with raglan sleeves made out of like tulle. They do mention they're using a mix of stretch woven for the body and then the tulle sleeves. It's really fitted. As you can see in the line drawings, there are dots everywhere, exactly what I want in a jacket. But this is a dress, but it can still work. So I went through the quest of using this dress pattern to transform it into a jacket pattern, and that is what I filmed. Now I know for some of you this is something that you never want to do, but it's something that I really enjoy doing, and I don't show it that often on the channel, but I do want to share. For my sewing I use all sorts of avenues, and this is one of the ways I like to sew. Sometimes it takes a long time and I do really have to be motivated to go through all this work, but while I'm doing it I'm having a load of fun. So I'm going to show you how I came up with the pattern and then some basic construction. Construction was really easy, and then you're going to see what it turned out like. So let's hop into Up Close and So Personal. I have the front pattern piece of my dress, my Burda dress, and this dress originally has a side bust dart there and a fisheye dart on the waist. Now I want to transform the whole look of this by adding more seam lines, eliminating some darts, changing some darts from one side to the other. But most important, I need to extend the center piece because I want to do an overlap for a jacket. So this dress is meant to be cut on the fold. So I have placed another paper underneath that I've already traced and did modifications to, and it's just sitting right underneath. Now on my original dress I first fixed the apex, so that is my apex there, about an inch lower than the dart here on this pattern. So I've marked that there, and on the piece I have underneath I have already lowered this dart. I've kept the same volume, the same shape, everything. I've just pushed it down to where it has to be. By doing that I will also have to shorten this waist dart there, because I don't want, it's finishing right at the apex and that does not look good. So I'm going to take off my original front dress pattern piece and show you all the lines I've done at the back. Now I know this is going to look like I'm insane, there are lots of marks here. But first let's start with the basics. Here is the apex that I've marked, and according to that I just laid that dart down to there. Okay, now I wanted to create 3 pieces for this front jacket. So we have a raglan sleeve arm side there that I have divided into 3 just to make it visually balanced. I have one there, I put a dot there, and I put a dot there, and from where the dart finishes there is gonna be my first seam line, and then from the rest that I had up to the middle point there I just divided it in 2 so that I have 3 balanced pattern pieces. I had one original waist dart here that maybe you can see very slightly. I just have it with a pen right there. This waist dart had a depth of 2 centimeters there, so 1 centimeter on each side of the line. And I want to transfer all that volume into 2 smaller darts that are going to end up taking up the same amount of volume, but just from 2 different seam lines. So that's why you see there on this seam line that I've drawn a smaller dart. This is 1 centimeter in depth there, and this other one from this other seam line I've drawn has a 1 centimeter depth there. Now from my apex point, I have drawn a 2-inch bust circle. Now that is just personal preference. The larger the bust, the larger the circle. The smaller the bust, the smaller the circle. I personally, for the bottom part of the bust circle around here, I do not want to go through it, you know. So I make my darts stop right where that little circle is. So you can see my bust circles there, 2 inches away from the apex. And I've got this little dart stopping there and this little dart stopping there. And you can see the darts are smaller. Actually, it's exactly the same as having that dart there. I've just changed it into that seam and that seam so that when I cut these open, I can actually eliminate and not actually have a dart, but these darts will be incorporated into these seam lines. Now, what I want to do with this side bust dart, because I don't want it there, I want to remove this volume and transfer it up to the arm side. This is a raglan sleeve design. So I want to have basically 2 princess seams. One that would be sort of the arm side there, and this one is sort of shoulder because it's way above, like, you know. So yeah, that is my intention. And to do that, I've measured the depth of this dart. It's 6 centimeters. That's how big of a chunk of fabric we eliminate by closing that dart. And I've just divided it into 2. So I drew another line from that dart of the leg, from the top one. I drew another line up there that's 3 centimeters wide. So basically these are my darts now. I have 1 dart there and I have 1 dart there. Look, this might look crazy, you know, but it's partially fun, experimentation, and on top of it all, just fun. From the bottom of the dart, I drew a straight line there up to that seam line that I want, and that is going to be 1 pivot point. And that is how I'm going to get rid of this bottom dart. And at this part here, I'm going to have another pivot point, and I'm going to get rid of this dart there. So I'm going to cut this up to that pivot point. So I'm right there. So I've cut through that and I have taken out this part here, and now by rotating this over here, I'm closing this dart here, and you can see immediately it's opening space in this area that I'm going to have to fill up with paper, because that's what happens when you're trying to do things flat. I'm closing volume over here and it's creating space over there. Right there. Okay, so I've done that, and now I want to do something similar with this other dart over here. So I'm also going to cut some lines. So I'm cutting this part here up to that area there, and I'm also cutting this other seam up to there. One important thing I forgot to do on this other seam, before rotating it, everything, I'm gonna mark a few lines here that I can later mark on my fabric so that I know how to line this up properly. So I remember to do it there, and before I forget, I'm gonna do it here at the bottom where the darts are, just so I know where to match them up. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and rotate pivot. Okay, so there I have closed that dart. Take this down, and now I have craziness going on, right? I've basically now got one piece there, one piece there, and one piece there, and all the volume that used to be in the side buster has been transferred off over to the top there. And now I'm just going to eliminate these little tiny darts I drew there and just clean off these curves, and I'm just going to be cutting away. Okay, so I have my 3 pattern pieces that I'm going to need for the front. Now you can see that one is a bit pointy there, and I'm just going to clean that out, and there we go. Now it's nice and round. I need to mark some grain lines on my pattern pieces. So cutting mat is super good. I'm working with transparent paper here. So I'm just going to do some quick lines. I can see the lines underneath, so I can mark a really good straight line. There we go. Now this looks crazy, I know, but in theory it should work. I have also drawn a facing for this jacket here, which is just the copy of the front piece there in the center. And then part of that seam about 6 centimeters down, and then with a curve, it's just a slight curve that goes down, and this piece is smaller than my center front piece. I have here the middle part of my front jacket piece, and remember when I pivoted I got that extra volume there around that curve. So I initially thought I had to match that same length, which is 18 millimeters, and lengthen the center front so that the seams would match exactly, you know. So that's what I've got there. But I consulted with an expert, Andrea from Sew to Fit, and she told me that actually I didn't have to lengthen the center front the whole amount, because if we remember like ready-made patterns, there's always this curve that is a bit longer that you need to ease into this one. And I remember that now. That's what I've done with patterns I've done in the past. So she told me to shorten the amount I'd added here by 1/4. So instead of it being 18 millimeters, I just need to lengthen it by 12 millimeters. So I'm just going to chop off a little bit there that I'd added to make it a little bit shorter, and that way it won't distort the length of the front. It'll still add a little bit of length, but not all the amount, and any excess, it can just be eased around that little curve like we're used to. The back is simple. The back usually doesn't have that much going on. In this case, this does have a center back seam. You can see there is shaping there in the design of this dress, so it is a fitted dress, and I do want my jacket to be fitted, so I'm keeping that shaping that's being given in the center back seam. And there's also a back fisheye dart there, so I just want to eliminate the dart. Basically that's all I want to do with the back. And I'm going to take a curved ruler. This is the curve I'm happy with, so I'm going to meet the top of that dart there to around half of that raglan arm side. You can see there, that is the piece I want at the back, and at the bottom from the tip of that dart I'm just going to extend a straight line. I'm going to mark the grain line on this center back piece, and on the side back piece, the lateral back piece as well. And that is basically it for the back. Super easy. I'm just going to cut out these darts now. They will no longer exist. I mean, they will, but you just won't see them because you have a seam. Here you can see all the pattern pieces I have already sort of finalized. All those other yucky ones that I messed around with at the front have been traced again and cleaned up and stuff. Here are my 2 back pieces, the center back. The blue areas there that you can see are where those darts used to be, but now they're just going to be in the seam. You can see I've got notch marks everywhere to match that up. I've got my double notches there to match the back sleeve over there that you can see 2 double notches, and then the 3 front pattern pieces for the, you know, front of my jacket, the lateral one, the middle one, and the center one. And I've got my single notch there to match to the single notch at the front sleeve of the raglan. There is my facing, and these 2 raglan sleeve pieces are the original pieces of this dress. I have not fiddled around with them. They are just as they are, because all these adjustments didn't actually modify the the raglan arm side at all. Okay, so here you can see my facing front, and that is where I decided to mark all my button reference points. And that faint line you see there is actually the original center front where I should have placed my dress on the fold, but that is actually where the buttons are gonna go. And so depending on what size button you're gonna use is how much you're gonna need to extend, you know, towards the center to have that overlap. Now I have some denim jacket like buttons that I found, golden color, and I'm just gonna place that in the middle of that center line, and I just drew my button there basically. So I know these buttons are 2 centimeters in diameter. I want from the end of that button to be 1 centimeter more of fabric. So basically from the center there I have 1 centimeter for the button, because the other one's to the other side, and then another centimeter. So I've basically extended from the center 2 extra centimeters. The first thing I did was assemble this back area here, the back piece. I sewed that, I overlocked it, and then I did just 1 narrow row of top stitching there with my edge foot. Then I did both fronts the same, assembled the 3 pieces. You can't really see that there, I'll show that later. And then after having the fronts done, top stitching, all that stuff, I went and assembled my 2-piece raglan sleeve. This is the back part of the sleeve, this is the front part of the sleeve. So this looks exactly like a raglan t-shirt would, and now all I need to do is unite the side seams. Okay, so this is the front. What I did that wasn't planned, and because of lack of fabric basically, that basting stitch that you see there in a light color, that is that basting stitch that you can see all the way up was where my front pattern piece would end, and then I would attach a facing. But I didn't have space for a facing, so I just extended it from there about 5 centimeters. And you can't see, but there's a little basting stitch there that I've done in navy blue, which is silly. And that marks the center of the jacket, or where the buttonholes are and the buttons are gonna be. So I did that to help me press, because I have interfaced this front area, just this piece, and my chalk markings don't show up that much. So I have already folded that, and that is going to be the piece in the middle where the buttonholes and buttons are going to be. I'm just going to overlock that edge. So all I have to do now is unite these side seams, and it'll be basically 1 continuous stitch for the sleeve and the side seam of the jacket. Then I have to overlock that, hem, and do the hem on the sleeves. And all the neckline I'm going to finish with bias binding that I've created, that is a bit wider than the normal bias binding. Okay, so here is my jacket. As you can see, I did not use denim. I didn't have the right type of denim. I had some stretch denim that was way too thin. I don't know, I just didn't have the right materials. And actually, although I like the look of denim with grey on other people, I think that is a look that is a bit too sporty for me. I'm not that sort of a sporty person. Even if I could make this jacket like that, I don't know how I would wear it, you know? So I chose this fabric. I bought this at the craft expo I went to in Sao Paulo last year. It was only 70 centimeters. And I did put some panels there with the little lines going horizontal and some vertical. And now that is not just for visual interest, it's because the pattern pieces wouldn't fit any other way. This fabric is woven, there's absolutely no stretch, and the fit was good. The only things I had to manipulate were these, the shaping on the back a little bit once I've finalized. And I still need to tweak a few things, but there is quite a lot of shaping there at the back. Not perfect yet. I did 1 narrow row of top stitching everywhere. Assembling this was very easy. It was like making a t-shirt. Just, you know how I did it. It was very easy. I didn't really have enough fabric to do the facings I had drafted, so I ended up just extending the center front further and then just folding it back like that. I did interface all that center piece because this fabric is not that thick, so it's all serged in there. This is the only seam I pressed open. I usually will do that on a back seam. I use these really nice buttons. They're made out of like shell. I don't know what these buttons are called. I don't usually know the names of things, but they're nice. The sleeves are made out of French terry, super comfortable. The neckline, as you saw, is just bias binding, and it's exactly like the inspiration photo. I noted how they finished because I didn't really know how to finish this area that was neat and the woven. Like, I couldn't do a facing in there, so I think this is the right way to do it. The hem was done with bias binding as well, as you can see there. That was sewn onto the bottom and then folded up and then top stitched down there. From the outside, it looks really nice and neat. I think this fabric calls for top stitching. It really likes it, and I even top stitched there where it unites to the sleeve. Okay, so here I have it on. You can see the neckline there, and the raglan sleeves fit really well. All these extra pattern pieces I wanted to create were just for visual interest. It hits there, sort of mid-hip where I want it to be. I can button it up. It is a little bit snug, a tad snug right there. That's why I think using a stretch woven would be better. But you know, I never wear jackets buttoned up. I just find it a bit geeky like that, and it's never that cold. So that is how I would wear it. And there's some shaping at the back there. So I'm extremely happy with this jacket. Let's call this a wearable muslin. I'm still tweaking a few little things, especially around the feet of the back. I know I can improve this. Now, this is as close fitting as the dress would have been, the original dress pattern. That was a straight size 46 Burda. I didn't make any changes to the fit as such. I really trust the drafting, and I know that's my size in Burda. So all the fun that I had was just moving things around, you know, it was all fun. If you want to see a little bit more of when I was making the first muslin, because I made just a quickie one to see about the fit, I have shown that in my Instagram stories. So if you go to my Instagram profile, there are some little things highlighted there as I'm showing you now. You can tap there and watch a little bit of what I was doing way back when I was actually just starting to make this jacket. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, you might want to, because I do pop in some things that you don't actually see here. I wanted to share this aspect of my sewing personality, the obsessive bit, the one that will just not take no for an answer. If there's not a pattern, I will create one. I will go through everything I have to go through to get what I want. And I really wanted this jacket. I really want another one that is going to fit me better at the back. Overall, I'm super happy I went through all the work. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and I will see you again on Thursday. Bye. Happy sewing.